Welcome to West End ahead of Vanderbilt and Texas alongside Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick for another episode of the Vandy Sports Podcast for our last minute thoughts. Joey, there's a buzz today, and it's because Texas is in town, but it's also because of Vanderbilt, what this team has done so far this season. And I'll start it off with this. It feels good, especially after last season, to have a game with meaning. I mean, we had, the Alabama game meant something, but I don't think there was this much buzz going into it the way this one has. But, man, it feels good to just talk about a game with this much magnitude. I mean, there's legitimate college football playoff implications today.
Yeah, I mean, Billy, we normally try to set the stage and tell you why this game's important, and today we don't have to set the stage. Everybody knows this game's important. It's a top 25 matchup, the first time since 2008 that Vanderbilt's played in one. Today's a huge day for Vanderbilt football, and you see the surroundings even behind us. There's a buzz on campus today. You see the frat sign behind us. I mean, this is a different energy than I felt covering this team, and I haven't been here as long as you, but, I mean, this is different than what Vanderbilt football is accustomed to. This team is different than what Vanderbilt football is accustomed to, and they deserved this. They deserve this environment, and now they've got a stage. They feel like they're underdogs. They're 18.5 or 17.5-point underdogs at this point, and they feel like they can go win this game. That's different than what Vanderbilt teams have seen in the past. This isn't a team that comes in and expects to only make it close or wants to only make it close. This is one of the best teams in the country, and Vanderbilt expects that they can come in and win this game, and that's a huge step for this program, and that's why you get it like this. This is Karkley's vision embodied, and maybe they win, maybe they don't. But just this in itself, seeing the atmosphere, seeing how the campus is rallied around this team, even with a bigger fan base coming in, you see a lot of blue, you see a lot of black, you see a lot of gold. I mean, this is what Karkley has always wanted, and today I think it's just an embodiment of his vision, like I said.
The thing I'm most interested in learning today is, can Vanderbilt's offense continue to dominate? I mean, they've dominated teams. Now, I will say in the last couple of weeks it hasn't looked quite the same. But, you played a pretty good Kentucky defense, and Ball State was Ball State, right? That was sandwiched in between a couple of big SEC games for this team. But I told you about 10 minutes ago, I'm really interested to see if this offensive line can hold up. I mean, I think they'll be able to hold up for at least a couple of quarters, but I'll be really interested. You get into the third quarter, you get into the fourth quarter, can this offensive line continue to make room for Pavia to clear holes in the run game, to pass protect? Right, or do they get exposed a little bit? Because I don't think they've seen a defensive line like Texas. I don't think they've seen a defense like Texas. They're giving up 10 points per game this season. Yeah. They're limiting teams to under 300 yards per game total. So this is the best defense Vanderbilt has faced. Is the offensive line up for the challenge? That's what I'll be looking for. The biggest thing, among other things, but the offensive line, and just whether or not they're up for the challenge for 4 quarters today. Because I think for the most part they will be. But can they hold strong in the fourth quarter when you need drive after drive and long drive after long drive? Can they continue to convert on third downs? Can they be 96% in the red zone again? Overall, I'm interested to see what this offense looks like today. But most importantly, the offensive line, big day for them.
Billy, we've known this is a good offense. We've seen it time and time again. This is their biggest challenge, though. And that if they fail it today, that doesn't mean they're not a good offense. But man, if they can come out here and beat a Texas defense that looks like one of the best in country, I mean, that would tell you so much about this offense and how far it's come. This is a Texas defense that, like you said, they allow less than 10 points a game. I mean, this is just such a huge test for them. And I do think that there is something in there within that Vanderbilt offense, at least in terms of their edge, that gives me some belief that maybe they can move the ball a little bit today. Maybe they're not going to convert on 96% of their red zone trips, but I do think that they have a knack for making the timely play, and I think that's such a huge thing. Against a team like Texas, you're probably not going to go and score 40 points like you did against Alabama. That was a defense that was susceptible. This defense is not susceptible, but I do think there is enough within this offense to where it's not entirely matchup-based. This offense is good, and they're also a matchup that teams have to prep for. If Vanderbilt loses this game today, that doesn't mean they're not a good team. I think we've seen all season they're a good team. This game doesn't define them, as doesn't their offense, but it could certainly catapult them to the next level if they can get there.
Defensively, they're going up against one of the best offenses in the SEC, led by Quinn Ewers. But do we see Arch Manning today? I'm very intrigued. And why, if so? Is it because Quinn Ewers is struggling? And is that a good thing for Vanderbilt? I made kind of a hot take a couple days ago to somebody. I said, if Arch Manning enters the game, that's a good thing for Vanderbilt. And you can believe it or not, but I think that's most likely because Quinn Ewers is struggling. Now he could get hurt, right? And Arch
He has
Manning
been struggling a little bit with that injury. It's
Right.
kind of nagged him.
Right. Quinn Ewers hasn't been the same Quinn Ewers the last couple of weeks. And I think, now again, I'm not saying that's going to carry over today, but if it does, if we see a kind of a banged up ginger Quinn Ewers and he continues to struggle, do we see Arch Manning? And is that a good thing for Vanderbilt? I think it will be. Arch Manning's a sophomore. Vanderbilt has an older defense. They've got older guys all over the field. But when you look at this offense, it's not necessarily about whether it's Ewers or Arch. It's about the system. It's about Ryan Wingo. We know Isaiah Bond is out, which is big.
That's huge, yeah.
Gunnar Helm, the tight end, he's got potential for a big day today, I think. Now, not saying if he does, Vanderbilt can't win, but I think that's something to watch also. But in the run game, Kirk Herbstreit made a really good point on game day today. He said it's a big opportunity for Texas and their offensive line to get Wisner and Jaden Blue and those backs going, because if they can't, that means they got to drop back 40 times or so today, and I don't think they want that. I think they want to be able to establish a run. So how do they look in the run game, but also do we see Arch Manning? And again, it might be a hot take. I think it's a good thing if we do, because it most likely means Ewers is struggling. There's always the chance he gets hurt, but how healthy is he? Is he 100%? I'm interested to know. Maybe we find out how healthy he is.
I agree with your take, and I don't think it's necessarily that hot. I think if Vanderbilt gets to Quinn Ewers and makes Sark make a decision, that's a great thing for Vanderbilt. And I don't know that'll necessarily happen, but Vanderbilt's prepared to see both quarterbacks, and I think that's the right approach here. I love that you mentioned the system, though. Clark Lee talked a lot about it this week. I don't think it's necessarily a Ewers or Manning thing. I think it's you've got to make tackles in space. You can't let the run game really get going. You got to make it hard on whatever quarterback is in the game for Texas. And I think that's the bigger thing than the quarterback. And I think that's what Vanderbilt's been focused on throughout the week. They have speed all over the field, at running back, at receiver, even a tight end a little bit. And Vanderbilt cannot be one-on-one in space consistently with them. Otherwise, that's a recipe for disaster. And Texas is going to go down and score just about every drive if that happens. Vanderbilt's got to be really sound. And the things that's made it good throughout the year, right? They have to be good in the margins. They have to have multiple guys running up to the ball. When there is a guy in space, they got to make that one-on-one tackle. Like you said, though, I think it is a great thing for them if Arch Manning comes in the game, not because of Arch Manning, but because of what that means about what they've done to Texas's offense. And I don't know that I have a ton of confidence that they can do that. It's one of the best offenses in the country. It's the third best in the league in just about every statistical category, and it's the best league in the country. So, I mean, there's an uphill climb, especially if Langston Patterson on the snap count. I think they got pretty fortunate with injuries, though. Colby Taylor's probable. I think he'll probably be on the snap count, I would guess. So I think there's a lot ahead of this Vanderbilt defense today. There's a lot of testing that's going to happen, but if they can pass it and maybe even get Arch Manning in the game, that's just such a huge thing for them. And their defense is not going to be the reason they win or lose this game, I would think. I think it's going to be time of possession. It's going to be the timely offensive play and maybe even the timely defensive play as well. But they've got to give them a chance, and they've given them a chance all year. Can they do it again today?
Let's get to our biggest key to victory. For me, it's start fast. Vanderbilt has to have a start fast. They have to have a fast start today.
You got rattled.
I got a little rattled. I tend to get rattled, Joey, under pressure.
When Billy hears good things about himself, his ego it just crowded the brain too much.
Hey, at least it wasn't a paper bag Alabama fan. I'd be uncontrollably laughing. But no, I think Vanderbilt has to start fast, and I think they probably have to start with the ball to do that. You don't want Texas getting the ball first today, and that's luck of the draw. I'm not sitting here saying Vanderbilt has to win the coin toss, but I do think if they get up 7-0 early like they did against Alabama, and you bring confidence to your defense right away, then that sort of flips the game a little bit into, you immediately put the thought into Texas. And if Vanderbilt gets the ball first, I wouldn't be surprised if they go down and score. I mean, they did it against Alabama. They've done it before. Did they do it against Missouri?
I know so. I don't know.
Did McVay? I don't think that was their first drive, but it was an early enough score to where they didn't beat Missouri, but that put the feeling on the other sideline of, okay, we're in for a fight. So I think they have to start fast, because if you get down to this Texas offense and they light a couple of scores up early, I don't know if Vanderbilt can come back from – they've shown they can come back from a 2-score deficit, but this is Texas.
Yeah.
This is different than Georgia State, and Texas is a more complete team. This is the most complete team Vanderbilt's played. So I'm not just talking about their offense. If you get down a couple of scores early, I'm talking about that Texas defense.
Yeah.
And then they start to pin their ears back a little bit, and it gets dangerous. But I think they have to start fast. I don't think this is a game where Vanderbilt gets down early and there's a feeling of, okay. So, again, Joey, fast start is necessary. I'm not saying Vanderbilt it has to be the exact same as Alabama, but you have to get a fast start because you don't want to give Texas confidence early and then their fans get into it, take the crowd out of it early, and give yourself the momentum early. I think that's the biggest key today.
I think it's all about who dictates this game. Is it a Texas-dictated game where Vanderbilt's not able to put together long drives offensively, where Texas's defense shows what it even showed last week against Georgia, where it's pretty freaking good. You even saw Texas show a little bit of weakness last week. The defense didn't show a whole lot, though. I mean, they still turned Georgia over a couple times. They're still Texas's defense. It's the number one defense in the league for a reason. I think Vanderbilt just has to be able to put its imprint on this game, if that makes sense. Alabama had no imprint on that game. That was Vanderbilt's game, and Vanderbilt set the tone for it. Vanderbilt played to its identity. I fear for Vanderbilt that Texas can maybe get it out of its identity a little bit, and if it dictates this game and forces Vanderbilt into a few turnovers and maybe shortens some drives, Vanderbilt could be in real trouble. Kirk Herbstreit talked this morning about how he thinks this game could either be 52-10 Texas, or it could be a close game, and if it's a close game, I think Vanderbilt, you don't hate your odds with the way they've been able to make timely plays throughout the year. They've just got to keep it close in the fourth quarter. Maybe they can spring up on Texas a little bit. But to do that, you have to have some control over the game. And we've seen too many times in games against bigger physical opponents, Vanderbilt has not had control of the game. And that's how these games have gotten to the scores they've gotten to. Vanderbilt's got to play to its identity, and it has to just find a way to stay in the game as a result of that. And I'm interested to see if it can put together those long drives and if it can get the running game going. And if it gang tackles a little bit, if it doesn't have guys running for 30, 40 yards after the catch, I mean, that's the big thing today. Can Vanderbilt put its imprint on this game and keep itself in the game enough to where maybe in the last couple minutes you make a timely play?
Yeah, can you control the game enough? Can you suffocate Texas the way you have other teams and most of the teams on this schedule? Again, that's another big key today. But, Joey, the biggest difference today and all throughout the season is that there's hope. There's hope in the air for Vanderbilt fans. This team is confident. If you ask them, they believe they're going to go beat Texas. And that's the biggest difference for this team. There's a confidence, there's a swagger that has rubbed off from Pavia, but also the staff, Jerry Kill. This is a really good coaching staff. And I'll be interested to see the matchup between Clark Lee and Steve Sarkisian. That's a really good defensive, offensive matchup. And so there's all kinds of things we're watching today. But, again, kickoff at 3:15, Vanderbilt, Texas. That's Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick. Stay tuned for the rest of our coverage throughout the game, after the game, and we'll see what happens. Maybe it's another fun day on West End. Thanks for watching another episode of the Vandy Sports